Now, how much has Nigeria become like a very old car, and every time you turn the ignition key, you hold your breath, wondering whether the engine will roll over and come to life. To be fair, the engine has never failed to splutter and start, but these days when you turn that key, you notice longer delays and noises and rattles, an extra turn or two or even three that evokes an ominous warning that something bad is about to happen. So how do you turn things around in a country where more than a year after Bwala Ahmed Tinubu made the case for his election as president of Nigeria, existence has become quite simply brutal? Well, for context, insight, and perspective, I'm joined now in the studio by the international lawyer, author, adjunct lecturer, and public policy analyst, Daniel Bwala. Great to see you, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Let me, we're going to talk about a number of things,
right,
but let me start by eliciting your reaction to some of the issues raised by my previous guest, Atedo Peterside. I wonder what you take out of any of the issues and topics you just heard. I mean, take your pick about which you'd like to sort of turn to.
Right. So let me start with the one of Edo. He made a number of comments, or he raised issues regarding INEC. I'm happy that rather than putting the blame on the players, he put the blame on the body regulating the umpire.
Yeah.
But it's understandable because INEC is a work in progress. And I know that part of the reform that is required to deal with election problem is not just that of INEC, there is also the aspect of regulation.
The security.
Yeah. And then the judiciary, which explains why the Chief Justice of Nigeria said recently that she is wholly committed to the reform of the judiciary, especially in areas that will fast-track administration of justice and zero tolerance on corruption. And she said that, I think, because of the index report that came out about corruption in public service, I think about 750-something billion, and a large chunk of it went to the judiciary. So she says she's committed to it. I believe her because the last time we had the female Chief Justice of Nigeria, I think, Milord Justice Aloma, there was a sweeping reform in the judiciary. So I trust women to bring about reform. So that point he raises, okay. Regarding... he also talked about, okay, regarding the economy, I'm glad he acknowledged, actually as a fact, that the removal of fuel subsidy, the policy introduced by the president, is the proper one. He also acknowledged the fact that what he called the cash transfer, which is an intervention, is one of the ways you can cushion the effect of the reform that you're introducing. And I'm glad also he knows, because there's no way you will introduce a reform, whether in governance or in any aspect of life, where it will not upset the apple cart. There will be a little bit of shift in the status quo. People will have to adjust.
This is a monstrously large move.
Understandably.
It's affected a lot of people and crippled a lot of lives.
I agree, because if you look at it, before the reform, there was this data report that says about a large chunk of Nigerians are living below poverty level. They call it multi-dimensional poverty.
Absolutely.
And there is an economic theory that when you are in a climate that has that kind of number, you bring the people out of poverty by funding the poverty. So the funding of the poverty is what Atedo is talking about, giving cash transfers. And if you look at some of the policies of President Bwala Ahmed Tinubu, especially the interventionist policy, demonstrate that we also believe in subsidy, but not fuel subsidy. There are areas to subsidize for the people. Subsidy in agriculture, subsidy in education, subsidy in healthcare, subsidy in transportation, introduction of alternatives to fuel, and all of these programs are running. Because of the population of Nigeria, because of the extent of the damage, what government is introducing and pushing to the public is having a slow effect, understandably so. It is like when you bring food to a population of, overwhelming number of people. It will seem as if you have not done anything because the food is small, the people are large. But what data and economists look at, they look at the fundamentals of the economy. And I have seen experts, I've been following experts' opinion on the economy. They are all agreeing to the fact that the fundamentals are taking shape. If you look at a report coming from the Bureau of Statistics, you will see that in the last 2 quarters, we have seen progress and improvement. Even if you look at food inflation, for example, the cost of items, anytime there is an effect on the cost of food inflation, You can always point at one or two things. For example, the flood in Borno and a few of the states in the northeast affected the crops and the farming produce of people. Understandably, it will have effects in the market. You have the war between Russia and Ukraine. Nigeria buys wheat and a number of food from Ukraine or Russia, cassava from Russia. And because of the war, it has affected. So even when you look at World Bank report on inflation, and you juxtapose that with inflation in Nigeria, you will see that although from the World Bank perspective there are rapid growth, but in Nigeria there is also growth, how built slowly. So in a nutshell, all that we keep saying to the Nigerian people is not look them in the face and say, we are not aware of the fact that you're going through situation. What we say is bear with government, always see what government is doing, take advantage of opportunities that the policy of the government unfolds to the people, and then see how we move from there. What I can assure the Nigerian people is that in less than no time, we are going to see that the economy will be put in a place where the son of nobody will find equal opportunity as the same as the son of the rich man.
Well, that's easy for you to say. You're sitting comfortably in that chair, but I don't even want to get into a long discussion because that'll take up the rest of the program, and there are a lot of other things I want to talk to you about. But I suspect that there are a lot of people who are listening to you, articulate as you are, and with all the clarity that you bring to it, and are rolling their eyes and saying,
understandably.
well, he just doesn't understand what we're sort of feeling.
Yeah.
But let's turn to the defamation lawsuit, which has been filed against the NGO SERAP by Nigeria's secret police, or DSS.
Correct.
The DSS said it had been defamed by SERAP's allegations that DSS operatives had invaded SERAP's office in Abuja, and that the claim was false, and its reputation had been negatively impacted. SERAP has hit back along with its colleagues, friends, Amnesty International and so on, at what they called a bogus defamation lawsuit. You're a lawyer. What is your assessment of the strength of the case being made by both the DSS and SERAP?
In this scenario, or in this real case scenario, I stand with the Department of State Services. And I must say that with the current leadership of the Department of State Services, we are seeing a shift from the status quo of having to bully anybody or organization that tend to poke in their eyes. What SERAP is doing, like every other human rights group, most often than not they do is that they try to bait the law enforcement into coming for them. So they can then cry out to the world and say they are being persecuted. And you know that most of these civil society organizations...
That's a gross simplification of what is clearly evident to a lot of people, that Nigerian authorities, particularly Nigerian security authorities, have had a history of systematically clamping down on civil society and to a large extent journalists as well. I mean, that's a known fact.
It's not a known fact, it's your opinion.
No,
because
it's not
I
my
have
opinion,
a counter.
it's a fact.
Okay, so let me tell you something about the SERAP, for example. The claim by SERAP has not been substantiated by any of the civil society. That's number one. Number two, the freedoms that we enjoy from the Constitution.
I don't know what you mean by the claim. You came to their office. Why would well, Amnesty International has come out in support of them.
That what? They said if it is true.
No. That's not what they said.
What did Amnesty say? I'll be glad if you can quote that.
I read their clear note on their website.
And what's the position?
They made it absolutely clear that, first of all, the move by the DSS to go to their office, I mean, that's an intimidating move. It doesn't matter whether you go there with guns or whether the fact that you are the DSS and you have a history behind you, and you are a the secret police of Nigeria. You enter somebody's office, whether there were 2 operatives or 20 operatives. I mean, you could have written them a letter. If you were simply there to invite them to come over and talk to you, write them a letter, they'll honor the letter.
So permit me to respond.
So it is intimidating when that's why they use the word invade our offices.
Let me tell you, in this country, we have found suits that are filed against government functionaries and institutions in which the individuals secure judgment against government in large sums of money. We run democracy. There are courts to not only protect your right, but to enforce it. If you believe that the law enforcement, not just DSS, anyone, unlawfully invade your territory and carries out an unlawful operation, I mean, you can always go to court. But the case in point is they peddle false allegation in the eyes of the Department of State Services. And my point is, in the past,
what is the false allegation?
About what they claim the DSS did.
Well, they said the DSS. I mean, you're a lawyer,
right?
You know that in a court of law, you can use the one of the things that is used by an alleged victim is a sense that you're under attack, you're under siege. That's what duress is about.
Right.
You see what I mean? So if somebody is
does the law say
if I'm
about
in my office and I'm a legitimate citizen sitting in my office and the DSS suddenly turns up at my office to say to me, without warning, without anything to say, we've come to get you to come and, speak to us and answer to whatever it is we want to answer to you. Don't you think that's intimidating?
So, no. Let me tell you the difference. So, every law enforcement, you must look at them and juxtapose their functions and operations and rank it in pari passu with the enabling law establishing them. This is a secret service. It's an intelligence organization. The modus operandi of an intelligence organization is different from a law enforcement that is not intelligence driven.
Yeah, but they said they came to invite them to come and speak to them. Why didn't they just write to them?
No, so this is the point I'm saying. I am saying that DSS took them to court rather than arresting and locking the individuals is a wordy conversation, because the leadership of the Department of Services is departing from what would have been the norm, that they will go and intimidate you.
Right.
He is going to court. So your own is to defend that fact. But I am telling you as a fact that it is also in the same way you talk about law enforcement having history. Also, some of these non-governmental organizations have checkered history of false allegation. Checkered histories, because the whole idea is that just bait them.
Yeah,
because it's law enforcement.
I don't mean to interrupt you,
right.
But talking about checkered histories, I mean, you must know that there's been a consistent pattern of intimidation and harassment. I mean, this is a known fact on the part of security agencies. Not just on civil society organizations, but on ordinary citizens.
But the point you are saying is you are saying, look at it.
And particularly of SERAP, because if you go and look at their history,
right,
you will see, and it's all there on the internet,
right,
that there's been a consistent pattern of intimidation and harassment of SERAP by the DSS as part of what they said was a growing trend of, what people have observed, is a growing trend to stifle the way they see it, dissenting voices in Nigeria. Now, the secondary part, that second part of it is a matter of question. But the key point is that there is a pattern that has been established against organizations like SERAP.
So that's my point. I'm a lawyer. I don't believe in conjecture. We believe in evidence-based assertion. When you say
we also
a law
believe
enforcement,
in precedent.
Yes, I believe. So when you say this is the history, and you're not treating a matter on a case-by-case basis, you are disingenuous to that body. I'm talking about SERAP. Now, but okay, since if you like in civil lawsuit, they said, if you bring the evidence of your good character, then the evidence of your bad character becomes admissible. If they are pointing at the history of Department of State Services, then this Department of State Services, they also have a right to point at their history. Now, look at SERAP. All the cases in the last 10 years that SERAP has filed against federal government, they have succeeded, and I challenge it, less than 15%.
Well, I can let you know also.
And there are so many claims that SERAP has made over the years that have not been substantiated.
But the reason they make a lot of those claims is to try and protect themselves from further. In other words, if you hit me with a stick this time, before you come back with a sledgehammer, I'd better go to court and protect myself.
So they didn't go to court. That's the point. The point I'm saying, I laid the background that if your right is infringed, about to be infringed, or you think it is going to be infringed, the law says you will approach the law court. That is the smartest thing that SERAP would have done. But what they are doing is inciting the public against law enforcement. That's the point I'm saying. Now, if you are If you are unconstitutionally exercising yourself, you cannot approbate and reprobate. So, but in this case, the Department of Services is the one that is even doing the right thing. So rather than us, based on your claims to try to go and intimidate you, we decided to go to court. And what is the position of SERAP about the suit that is filed? So it's left for us to see how it
well,
play out.
the DSS launching a 5.5 billion naira lawsuit against SERAP. I mean, as a lawyer yourself, don't you think that's abusing the legal system? Actually, in order to, as a different way, that's the way they see it, as a different way of censoring and silencing legitimate human rights and anti-corruption work.
It's a defamation claim. It's left for the court to assess whether the defamation is worth the money that you are claiming before the court. Well, SERAP is an international organization, so 5.5 billion naira, if you convert it into dollars, is nothing compared to what SERAP may have been. I use the word may have been.
Now you're speculating.
Getting from international bodies.
You said you didn't want to speculate. I'm going to give you 1 minute to wrap up. Just by yourself, give us your final take on this, because we know you're a lawyer, international at that. I mean, you know, in London, Lincoln's Inn, and here in Nigeria, Femi Falana, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, has sued the DSS on many occasions and has won cases where they argued that actions by the DSS have often posed a significant threat to the rights of activists, to freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association. What I want to get from you in the final analysis is that as a lawyer who was once yourself an opposition politician, you must see that there have been ongoing attempts by the Nigerian authorities to try to muzzle activists and journalists, even opposition politicians, sometimes in very subtle ways, other times in very overt ways.
Let me be very, very frank with you. It is an outlandish claim, and I will tell you why. The opposition party in Nigeria at the moment have all of their rights to function. All the opposition parties are dysfunctional at the moment. You cannot, in the midst of your dysfunctionality, claim that the federal government is responsible for your inability to put your house in order.
Those are two different
things. Yes, but let me make the point. So that's one. Number two, with respect to free press and the rights of journalists, all over the world, that is how democracy is modeled. That there is a government and there must be a civil society who will continue to put government in check. Then there are courts. When there is a dispute between these both, the court will have a look at it and then decide who is right and who is wrong in the given circumstance. In the administration of President Bwala Ahmed Tinubu,
10 seconds.
I make bold to say that I have not seen any evidence to suggest that this administration is stifling the rights of individuals or is fighting the opposition.
On that note, Daniel, it's always a pleasure having you in here. Daniel Bwala is an international lawyer, author, adjunct lecturer, and public policy analyst. Great to see you again.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja and Lagos. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.